Hey, Clemson family. Welcome to the 5th episode of the Reign Supreme Alway podcast. We want to be your source for analysis of the Tigers in 2022. We really want to thank everyone for a big reaction to our most recent episode. It was our best one yet as far as listenership. Hopefully you will smash that subscribe button or that follow button like so many other Tigers fans are doing, and we'll work hard to earn your loyalty as we continue to get a little better at this. I'm Bill Zimmerman.
I'm Daniel Shirley, and looking forward to another big week. We got a big recruit to talk about. We're going to break down the safeties and can't wait to get going.
Yep, and that big recruit is commit Peter Woods, defensive lineman out of the state of Alabama. Clemson doing pretty well in Dabo Swinney's home state, and definitely one that drew a lot of celebration among the other commits in this Clemson class. Even opened a few eyes among some targets out there.
Yeah, it was what a commit this is for Clemson, and this is the one we've kind of been looking forward to for a couple of weeks. There's been others. We're not overlooking the ones that took place, but there are 7 5-star players in the state of Alabama, and Clemson's got commits from 2 of them with Peter and Chris Vizina. So really excited about this commit. He's a terrific player. Like we talked about on last week's episode, there's been a lot of comparisons to Christian Wilkins. We'll see how that pans out. That's a big-time comparison for Clemson fans, but Peter Woods is a really big-time commitment, big pickup. Hopefully, if you're a Clemson fan, it's just going to continue this momentum and see if they can keep that going as well.
Boy, I doubt we'll see him on a wheel route on a fake punt in a playoff game. It was amazing. I was in that stadium and Wilkins was just running right toward me. And I'm like, are they really doing this? I had a seat down the corner, which isn't always the best seat, but boy, for that play, it sure was fun to see him coming right at me and catching that ball and making a nice play there. But Peter Woods adds to a very deep defensive line class and really a very deep class overall. It was nice to see Vizina get down there. I don't know how far apart they are in Alabama, but he showed up for the commitment ceremony in person. So some close-knit relationships are developing in this class.
Yeah, this is a strong class. Like we've seen top 5, the rankings that are coming out. And, defensive line has been a big piece of this. And I think we knew that it would be. It was going to need to be because there are so many talented players on this year's roster who are not going to be there for much longer. So you get Peter Woods, you get Vic Burley, you get Jamal Anderson as an outside linebacker, but, he's up there as well. A.J. Hoffler is another one. So there's just names on top of names on top of names in this group, and Peter Woods is the big fish. And I know that a lot of the other players were tweeting and welcoming him to the class. It was good to see Christopher Vizina there. He's the quarterback. The quarterback's always the leader, and he's kind of the linchpin of the class. And that's where things kind of took off when he committed, and we're seeing him continue to be part of recruiting more players for this class, and I don't think he's done yet.
No, well, it's obvious they need a running back. It's obvious they need a second receiver. They probably want a 4th offensive lineman, other depth around the field as well. No real clear who are we watching for next or what date are we watching for next, but I'm sure it'll continue to unfold. Even if this June/July wave is coming to a halt, we will see more players added to this class and hopefully no more decommits.
Right. Yeah. The Clemson class has had 1 decommit, and there's still time for any of this stuff. We've still got 6 months until signing day. You hope there's no decommits from this class because this class is so good. It's so well-rounded. It's strong on the offensive line. It's strong on the defensive line. You have your quarterback. Like you said, there's still some spots to hit. But right now, if you went and said, okay, these are the 17 we're going to sign, and nobody else joined the class, you'd be really happy with what you have.
Yep, absolutely. So we will keep you posted here on this podcast. You can also check us out at clemsonkickoff.com or at Clemson Kickoff on Twitter as well for all the latest out there. We tend to retweet a lot of stuff. We'll post every now and then so you can get all the info that you want in between our episodes. And when you talk about well-rounded, you made me realize our next segment is coming up, and here we go on safeties, previewing who's going to be lining up in the defensive backfield at 2022. And it all starts with Andrew Mukuba, the tremendous sophomore who had an unexpectedly great freshman season last year.
Yeah, one of the best freshman seasons we've seen from a Clemson player. He was just everything that they thought he was going to be and maybe a little bit more. He's so versatile. He's so talented chasing down the ball. He can cover. We all remember the Louisville game where he had a couple of huge tackles to take Louisville off the field and to keep Clemson in that game. Down on that goal line stance at the end of the game, he was there on a couple of those plays. He's such a talented young man. They're talking about using him maybe some at cornerback as well because of that versatility, but he's going to be on the field, and he's a huge part of what this defense is going to do this season. And, just think he's there for at least this season and one more season to continue to grow as a player. If he does that, that's scary for the opposition.
Absolutely. And I hope that some of that working out at corner is more about teaching him to be a nickel, maybe mixing in some banjo type coverages where guys line up and sort of disguise coverage, kind of rotate after the snap. We've seen Alabama do that a lot. We may see that a little more from Clemson this year. If he's more of a coverage type safety, because we haven't seen a lot of those guys, maybe even not since Jadar Johnson several years ago.
If he could play cornerback and safety there in the NFL, there's a bigger spot for him on somebody's roster. And I think that's what it is. I think you're right. And I hope that's what it is, but he's such a good player. I can't wait to see how he's grown from last year and see him step into a leadership role a little bit, because last year as a freshman on such a talented defense with some depth, he didn't have to really be the leader, but this year he's going to have to step into that leadership role a little bit.
The other expected starter at safety is someone who I've liked all along and had to work a little harder to earn your respect, I think, is Jalen Phillips, who I've always seen something in this guy that just looked right. And I'm no DB coach. I can't get into, it's A and B and C. Just does things the right way. And, DBs are going to get beat sometimes. That's the nature of the game. I think defensive backs and offensive linemen are the two groups of players that things are really stacked against. But I think it's pretty inarguable that Phillips took a big step forward last year. We've seen that from other safeties in the past, to be pressed out there young and not really be 100% ready. And Phillips really, by the end of last year, looked 100% ready, didn't he?
He really did. And again, we've seen this from this program for the last decade. There are some players who it takes a little longer to develop, and that's okay. And it took Jalen a little bit of time to develop, but he really stepped up last year and played well, and was a big part of the success last year of this defense. So liked what I saw from him from last year. Again, take another step forward this year, show off that versatility that he can do a little bit of everything. And I think he can take another step forward and help this team even more this year than maybe what we thought of him, maybe yours truly, especially last year going into the season. But he was really strong last year, solid, didn't make mistakes. There weren't busts, those kinds of things. Yeah, players, defensive backs get beat, but there weren't busts. And so I'm really impressed by the transformation that we saw from him in the 2021 season. Hopefully we see more from him this season.
Yeah, and one of the reasons Phillips saw more time last year was the injury to Nolan Turner. He got more snaps out there. He got more experience, maybe built a little confidence, but truly emerged. And then you wonder, well, who's that guy this year who might be able to emerge? There's a lot of depth at safety, more so than I think a lot of people give credit for. R.J. Mickens was a top prospect out of Texas. Tyler Venables, as we mentioned a little bit, since he plays a little bit of Sam, the better of the two Venables brothers among the players. Landon Sanders has always earned a lot of compliments from Dabo Sweeney, earned them from Brent Venables before he departed, and we'd love to see him put it all together. You and I have both been a little critical of him, but again, he's kind of been young out there. He hasn't ever had that real extended amount of time to shine. And then the true freshman, Sherrod Koval, looked really good in the spring and earned a lot of praise as well.
Yeah, Mickens, I thought, like we were talking about with Jalen Phillips, Mickens took a step forward last year, and I was impressed by that. Landon Sanders was a starter 2 years ago, Bill, and then has been banged up. So can he be healthy and continue to help this team? If he's the starter before and now he's second, third team, okay, well, you've got some depth here to work with. And then Koval, I can't wait to watch him play. I really am looking forward to seeing what he can bring to this team. Talented young guy, big time recruit, and a lot of confidence as well. And I think that's big when you have that kind of confidence as a defensive back, because like we've said, you're going to get beat. You're going to make mistakes. But if you have that confidence in yourself to shake it off and say, okay, next play, let's go, I think that can be really important for a young guy playing in the secondary. So really looking forward to what Sherrod Covell can bring to this group.
We had a comment on the last episode on YouTube. Tyler Venables is a little iffy, was the comment from someone else. And he is, I mean, nobody's perfect out there, especially at the defensive backs. And I said, well, if he was in the conversation as a starting linebacker, the bar might be a little higher to clear, right? But as someone who can be a key piece, be flexible, move around the field, maybe he looks like he's going to do one thing pre-snap and he does another after the snap. There's value in that.
There is, and to play multiple positions too. I mean, we've seen that from this defense the past few years is players stepping into different roles. And the thing about Tyler, at least he can be, is a veteran leader. He's got some experience. He can play different spots, and he can help this defense in different roles. And that's huge, because somebody's going to get hurt. There are going to be dings, and somebody's going to have to miss plays or even a game. You hope it doesn't happen, but it's football. It does happen. And if you have a guy like him who's a veteran and knows different roles and can handle those mentally, that can be huge for a defense.
Absolutely. The other thing I wanted to mention in regard to the safeties, we have talked a lot about Wes Goodwin now, of course, being a little more able to do the things that he's thinking about, not have to clear it through his boss, who, former defense coordinator Brent Venables. But this is the position that Mickey Kahn has been coaching, and now he's a co-defensive coordinator. So it'll be interesting to see where his mind is and how the safeties get used.
It will be, and I'm interested to see how he and Goodwin work together, to be honest. That's going to be a key for this team, because it looked good in the bowl game. It looked good in the spring, but now we're going into games for this season that really matter. And those two, how they work together, is going to be a big part of whether or not this defense succeeds. I think they're going to be just fine. Mickey, I've known of Mickey for a long time. He coached high school football here in Georgia for many, many years and coached it in, one of the best programs in the country, and did a great job with that program. And since he's moved to Clemson, he's done a really good job with the safeties and has earned this chance to be a co-DC. So that's going to be, I think, one of the big pieces of the puzzle for this defense going into 2022.
So watching that all shake out on the field should be interesting. Safeties sometimes can be a little bit of an invisible position, but if you're watching the game close and you're keeping an eye on how these guys perform, it really is a pretty impactful position out there.
The coaching staff has changed, right? With Brandon Streeter taking over as offense coordinator. There's other moves throughout the staffs. That's okay, though. I know there's been a lot of consternation out there, maybe some nervousness about a new coaching staff. But you also have to remember, Dabo Swinney hired these guys, and he also has worked with these coaches, and he's promoted from within. And genuinely, that has worked with him since he's been the head coach. So I trust the fact that he's going to put people in position where they can succeed. And that's what I'm looking forward to with Coach Kahn and Coach Goodwin working together, Coach Streeter running the offense. I think we're going to see this Clemson team take a step back in the right direction with this new look coaching staff.
Well, one game where we might be able to kind of watch how players unfold in their own performances away from the ball rather than follow the ball would be week 3 and Louisiana Tech. And let's hope that I'm not overlooking some team that could be kind of what Troy was a few years ago and play us really, really close. But they will be a tougher opponent than Furman. But like you said last week, if we're worried about the game situation more than the spotlight being on the Tigers roster, who's doing well in what roles, that's not going to be a good thing.
No, not at all. This feels like another one of those games where there's a lot of guys get on the field, and you're going to see a lot of players get experience. They're going to get a lot of experience, you hope, if you're winning the game big. This game's at home. You should win it pretty easily if you're going to be the kind of team that I think Clemson can be. And, you just look forward to taking care of business and seeing a lot of Tigers on the field during that game, because this is not a game that if you're going to have the kind of season we think Clemson can have, this can't be a close game, I don't think, because then if it is, you're really going to have to grow from this game to what's coming after it. And, that wouldn't be exactly what you're looking for going through this game. So, 3 games in, this would feel like another one of those, like the first 2, where, okay, Georgia Tech is maybe a little bit of a challenge since it's a conference game, but it's really not. Furman is an FCS program, and here's a Group of 5 program in Louisiana Tech that has had a good run here and there, but this is a game that you should be able to handle pretty easily.
First-year coach there is Sonny Cumbie. Probably not familiar to very many Clemson fans, but he has faced Clemson before as a walk-on reserve quarterback in the Tangerine Bowl for Texas Tech. That was a game that did not go well for Clemson. Did not enjoy sitting in the stands for that one down here in Central Florida, but they went 3-9 last year, so Skip Holtz is on the way out. Cumbie is on the way in. He was last year offensive coordinator at Texas Tech. Before that, for several years, he was an assistant at TCU, and he has reunited with quarterback transfer Matthew Downing, comes over as a junior from TCU. Had a pretty good spring game showing. The team put up 30 points a game or more 6 times last year, despite going 3-9. So there's some talent on this Louisiana Tech team.
Yeah, look, Downing is a good player. Again, is he a superstar? No, but if you follow college football, he is a good player. He's a solid quarterback, and that, like we've talked about with Clemson in the past, it starts at quarterback in college football. And if you have a quarterback who you trust, and I'm sure Sonny trusts him since they've worked together before, that's a big step in the right direction. And Sonny has worked for good coaches. I mean, you say Gary Patterson and Tommy Tumerville and Mike Leach and Cliff Kingsbury, that's a good group. That's a good group to learn from. That's a good group to work for and see how they handle things. It's his first time being a head coach, but he's worked for coaches who know what they're doing. And when you work for people doing, you learn from them if you're doing things the right way.
There you go. If you're going to catch a team with a new coach, you kind of hope to catch them early in the year, and you kind of hope to catch them at home. And Clemson's doing both of those things in week 3 against Louisiana Tech. Hopefully the focus will be on who's going to really be ready to elevate their game stepping into conference play, because Wake Forest is ahead the next week. But inside that locker room, they can't get caught up in those kind of things. They're going to have to prepare and play this Louisiana Tech team.
Yeah, I mean, look, and we've seen that. I mean, this program has been consistent, and Dabo Swinney has talked about that's what he wants, a consistent program. And we don't see the wild swings of highs and lows that were there before he became the head coach. So, they may not play the greatest, but I think you'll see this team be prepared and be ready to play. They won't look ahead to Wake Forest or what's to come. They'll focus on Louisiana Tech.
I think you keep inadvertently setting me up, because speaking of wild swings, conference realignment continues out there in the Power 5, which really feels more like a Power 2 right now. And how are the other 3 conferences going to react? And there was a very interesting tweet thread this morning as we record this on Monday. David Hale, very strong reporter at ESPN, who is, we've both worked with him, you much more so than I. And really, it was kind of nice because he opened up with the fact that, hey, I was on vacation all last week. And it was sort of that step back look. It wasn't all the, wild machinations that run, all of our thoughts, skip ahead when something breaks, like USC and UCLA changing conferences, right? But this was kind of a little more reasoned, thought out, and dare I say even researched approach to the topic. And it was, a dozen tweets or so?
Yeah, it was, and it's good. And David has a really good way of just, okay, these are facts, right? I'm not looking at anything through any fan's specter. These are just facts based on what he knows, and he's dialed in at ESPN. And yeah, I have worked with David a couple of times at a couple of different newspapers, and he knows what he's doing. And here, and he's pointing out, here's what we know. And it's a really good thread. If you go to Twitter, check it out. But you'll learn a lot if you've been watching some of the predictions of some writers out there, or some tweeters out there that might not know all of the facts about what's going on. And David really points that out in a really succinct way.
I don't think any one writer or any one lawyer really understands all the lockdown facts about these contracts. Contracts are made to be broken, loopholes are always somehow found and exploited. So it's really hard to say with any certainty, is it 50 million? Is it 100 million? Is it 120 million? Can you get out of the grant of rights? Is the grant of rights like a very solid thing? One thing David points out very smartly, no one's challenged it yet. Oklahoma, Texas, they decided to stay put rather than challenge that. But it was a much shorter term lockdown with the grant of rights in those cases. This is, another 14 years remaining, if I'm not mistaken. So the stakes may be a little higher to push Florida State or Miami or even Clemson to say, you know what, we're taking this to court because we're getting the short end of the straw here compared to our competition nationally.
And I think some people, Bill, are getting the rights deal with the conference and the TV deal with ESPN confused. And those two things are not tied together, so apparently. So, we'll see how that plays out. Those are two separate deals that have to be dealt with. And from all indications, one is not impacted by the other. So, the thing about Oklahoma and Texas you mentioned, they haven't fought theirs yet. USC and UCLA are leaving in 2024. There's a reason for that, because that's when their deal comes up. So a lot smarter people than me will figure this out, but it just feels like things have settled down a little bit since maybe we talked just the other day, where at one point it felt like, oh my gosh, something big is going to happen tomorrow. And then nothing has happened. It feels like Notre Dame is the next domino, and then we go from there.
I still haven't seen anything that changed my prediction that Notre Dame ends up in the Big Ten. I know that doesn't help the Big Ten expand its TV markets, but just seems like that fit is going to happen. And it does also seem like they have to be the first domino. Like, people are on hold waiting to see what happens there. They're not going to make any assumptions. So we will keep an eye on things, and we will post on ClemsonKickoff.com. We will tweet. We will post on Facebook at Supreme Alway as things happen. And if something huge comes up, we'll do the dreaded emergency podcast, won't we?
Yes, we will. Looking forward to one of those eventually. I know we're going to have one. I thought we might have one Friday, but it was a little too late for Friday with Peter Wood's announcement. But eventually we will have the emergency post for our podcast.
There you go. Well, hey, I hope everyone has enjoyed this episode as much as the others. We are glad you found us, Clemson family. So go ahead and smash that subscribe button or that follow button. It is free. You won't miss out anytime we post, because we're going to react to big news happening around Clemson athletics. If you can give us a like, if you can give us a rating, we'd appreciate that. Our homepage has some great resources. Go ahead and check that out. Once again, ClemsonKickoff.com. You'll find all our important links there, and you can follow us on Twitter. You can follow us on Facebook. So until next time, go Tigers.